What is going on, everyone? My name is Turk. This is Level 1 News, and today we are going to be talking about the biggest winners and losers of 2017 in the video game industry. I think this is a really important video to do just to kind of look back and see what companies did right, what companies did wrong, and the lessons that we can learn from those mistakes and those successes. So I narrowed it down to 3 winners and 3 losers. There were many successes, there were many failures, but I think these are the ones that really shaped 2017. And I think these were also like the biggest news stories. These were the ones that were all over the internet. Everyone was talking about these stories. So let's just get right into it. So the first real success of 2017, I think, goes without question to Nintendo in general. And in particular with the Nintendo Switch. Nintendo was obviously, in a bad place in 2016. The Wii U was obviously a huge failure. Nobody was really talking about Nintendo for the past few years, and even when they showed the Switch, people were interested, but they were also kind of cautious. But in 2017, they really proved themselves with the Switch. And when the Switch first came out, it was pretty much sold out everywhere. It was hard to get, and it stayed hard to get for many months after launch. It was the best-selling console for several months of the year. So overall, the Switch has been very successful, especially when you compare it to the Wii U. But not only that, but the games. It wasn't just Zelda. Yeah, Zelda is a big exclusive, but they also had Mario Odyssey, and they had plenty of other exclusives like ARMS, Splatoon 2, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. The list just goes on, and they really did a good job of getting the momentum out there for the first year of the Switch. And the proof is in the numbers now. The Switch is selling really well. The games themselves are doing big numbers. Zelda and Mario doing really good in sales. And again, this is just the first year of the Switch, so we'll see what Nintendo has lined up for 2018. But I think that's one of the biggest success stories of 2017, and one of the biggest surprises. If we're being honest with ourselves, Nintendo was starting to really lose its credibility, especially with the Wii U, and they completely turned everything around in 2017 with the Switch, and they really just got back in the spotlight. For a while everyone was talking about, oh, Nintendo's gonna go third party, even though we've heard that talk for a long time now. But it really seemed like it was likely this time. And, they really proved themselves this time. And Nintendo really is back, back in the fight against Microsoft and Sony. So I think it's really important to note that, how Nintendo really came back from, being really left out of the picture for several years with the Wii U. And now Nintendo finds itself like right in the middle of the spotlight again. And overall, just good on Nintendo for, turning the ship around, learning from their mistakes, listening to fans, and just overall good on Nintendo in 2017. Now, if Nintendo had one of the big success stories of 2017, the other real major success story is PlayerUnknown's Battleground. Let's all be honest, we didn't even know about that game when it was first announced. Even when the game first came out, not a lot of people were playing it. But it just really got popular as the year went on. It released in March of 2017, and since then it's just becoming more and more popular. It's broken all sorts of records on Steam, and even though it's technically not a full game in 2017 because it's still in game preview, so maybe it's not game of the year necessarily, but it's definitely the game of the year in the sense of it's the most talked about game. It's the most played game of 2017. It was everywhere. Everyone was talking about it, and it looks like it's just going to get even more popular from here on out. And I think that it's important to note that this is coming from like a small development team. You don't have to be a big AAA developer to put out one of the best games of the year. It didn't have a big marketing campaign behind it. Didn't have all these months of a hype cycle behind it. The game kind of just came out, and with word of mouth, it became one of the most popular games of the year. So congratulations to PUBG. It's definitely one of the biggest games of 2017. And the last winner of 2017, I'm just going to give it to the general category of PlayStation 4 exclusives. 2017 saw some of the best games Sony has to offer. It had Horizon Zero Dawn, Neo, Nier Automata, Persona 5, Uncharted Lost Legacy. These are some really great games, and they all hit kind of one after another, and it really helped Sony really build up their library of games. Sony has now sold 70 million PlayStation 4s when you compare it to Microsoft's. Maybe they're around 30 million now. So they've more than doubled their competition at this point. And the two systems are very similar to one another. There's only one major difference between them, and that is that Sony has so many more exclusives and so many more interesting exclusives. And that became very apparent in 2017. It's really gotten to the point where you really need a PlayStation 4. If you want to be a gamer in 2017, you really needed a PlayStation 4 because there were so many major exclusives, and they were only on PlayStation 4. And it's not going to stop in 2017, because next year they already have a bunch of other exclusives lined up. God of War, Days Gone, Detroit Become Human, Spider-Man, The Last of Us Part 2. They have this whole list of games lined up, and these are exclusives that you can only play on PlayStation 4, and that strategy has been very successful for Sony. So I think that's also really important to point out, is Sony's strategy of really betting on first-party exclusives to sell their consoles, and it's really paying off now. So PlayStation 4 is way outpacing Xbox One in sales, and that became very, very apparent in 2017. Okay, now the losers of 2017. This list can be very, very long if I wanted it to be, but I try to keep it to the three biggest stories of 2017. And I don't really want to rub these in people's faces, but I think it's important to take away lessons from each of these stories. And the first one that we definitely have to mention is EA, in particular with Star Wars Battlefront 2. Now, I'm not going to repeat all that has been said about, the loot boxes and all that stuff. I'm not going to go through like the whole back and forth history of that. I'm not going to go into the details of that. It's still fresh in everybody's mind. We all know what happened with that whole situation. But what's really important about that whole thing is that EA has to start listening to their fans. And if EA wants to continue making games that gamers are receptive to, they have to listen to their fans, and they have to stop with this, predatory kind of way of developing their systems that encourage people to spend way more money than the game is actually worth. I get that costs are expensive now. I get that it's very expensive to make a game, a big AAA game in 2017, but you can't do it in this kind of shady, predatory way. You look at Overwatch, not a single person has complained about that game. Why? Because they kept it only to cosmetics. If EA had just done that with their loot box system, none of those problems would have happened. But because they tried to make it so that you pretty much have to pay extra money if you want to continue playing the game, that's what gamers are going to fight against, and EA is going to lose that battle. And we don't know at this point we don't know what the sales numbers are for Star Wars Battlefront 2, but my guess is that those sales are not going to meet expectations, and EA is going to be pissed. And Disney is going to be pissed. Disney owns Star Wars, obviously, and they're probably very concerned. This is not a good look for them at all. For people to be hating on a Star Wars game. People are supposed to be celebrating a Star Wars game. And all we heard about was, how this game was, had a terrible microtransaction system. And again, it generates all that negative buzz that it generates. Not good. Not good for EA and not good for Star Wars games. Star Wars deserves better than this. And EA needs to do better. Star Wars is a franchise that you need to handle with a lot of care. And all EA seems to be doing is trying to figure out ways how they can extract extra money from their fans. And it's not a good mentality to have, where a lot of money is on the line. So that's really the lesson that EA has to learn as far as like that whole microtransaction system. But really the other thing that I don't hear a lot of people talking about with Star Wars Battlefront 2 is the campaign. They hyped up the campaign kind of with saying that, oh, this time there's a single player campaign an original Star Wars story in Battlefront 2, and the game didn't even, and the campaign wasn't even all that great. It really wasn't. So that's really the other thing. That's really the other disappointment, is that EA put in minimal effort on the single player campaign, and it shows. It's not done well. The story doesn't really make a lot of sense. The gameplay isn't all that great, and it's a shame that, because Star Wars Battlefront 2 should have been better than its predecessor, and right now it doesn't seem like it's that much better at all. In fact, in some ways it's worse than the original Star Wars Battlefront. You could point fingers at EA, maybe at the development team, but I think it's really all about EA. They need to manage their projects better. And another perfect example of this is when they closed down Visceral. There was another Star Wars game, a big, major, single-player Star Wars game that they just kind of shut down. So just overall, EA did not do good in 2017, and we'll see if they learn any lessons for next year. Now, the second biggest loser of 2017 is also an EA game, but I really wanted to give this its own category, is Mass Effect Andromeda. This game came out in March of 2017. There was a lot of hype behind it. Obviously, the Mass Effect franchise was huge last generation, and Mass Effect Andromeda, a lot of people were looking forward to it, and it came out, and it was one of the biggest jokes of the year. Obviously, the first thing that you know about Mass Effect Andromeda, the weird facial expressions and like the weird animations, and those all the memes that those generated, all the jokes and YouTube videos, all that stuff just totally reduced Mass Effect Andromeda to the running gag of the internet. But even when you get past all of the weird kind of animations, the game itself didn't turn out to be all that great. A lot of parts of the game were tedious, they're boring, and they just don't live up to the Mass Effect name, really. Overall, it didn't push the franchise any further. In fact, it made the franchise into a joke, to the point now where they canceled the DLC. Mass Effect probably isn't going to come back for a while now, just because that, you know, they tarnished the name, and that's a huge shame, because Mass Effect again was a huge franchise last generation, and now it became a joke. They turned the Mass Effect franchise into a joke now. It's kind of amazing that they managed to do that with one game, but it just goes to show you how high the expectations were. The lesson in all that is, if you're gonna do a sequel to a very respected franchise, do it right or don't do it at all. Don't just half-ass it, because when you do, it just tarnishes the name, and then you end up in a situation like this where they probably can't even do another Mass Effect game for a while now. You know, handle your franchises with care. You know, it would have been better if they just never released the game and just waited and really put in the effort to make sure that the game is at least as good as the previous games. You know, people were expecting this to be even better than the previous ones. We didn't even get that close. This was even worse. This was worse than the other ones. But you have to at least kind of maintain that level of quality with your game, especially when a lot of people are hyped for it. Okay, and now last but not least, the final big loser of 2017 is kind of the opposite of one of the big winners of 2017. As I mentioned, Sony with their exclusives, they were one of the biggest winners of 2017. Well, Microsoft with their exclusives, they were one of the biggest losers of 2017. When you really list out the games that they put out in 2017, you have Halo Wars 2, you have Cuphead, and then you have Forza 7. There might be a few other games in there, but none of them are really that important. But those are the three exclusives they had the entire year. And that's because one of the big reasons why is because they had Scalebound canceled and Crackdown 3 got delayed into 2018. And on top of that, there were other games that we thought were going to be 2017 but ended up getting announced for 2018, like Sea of Thieves and State of Decay 2. So just all around, not a good situation for Microsoft in 2017. Really the big one though is Scalebound. The fact that Scalebound got canceled, that one was really bad, because that was a game that was shown for like several E3s, and it was hyped up as one of the major games, one of the major exclusives for Xbox One, and they just canceled it. And it really makes you wonder, you know, what was going on there? Like, How did you not know that the situation was that bad with this game that you couldn't try to fix it earlier on? The only thing to do was to cancel the game. The game was originally supposed to come out in 2016 and it got delayed into 2017. So there was a lot of problems with the development. It's really on Microsoft. They need to be managing their projects better. And they should have seen what was going on over there, and they just mismanaged it. And maybe it was on Platinum too, but it's up to Microsoft because that was their exclusive. And because it was canceled, it left a big gap in their exclusive lineup in 2017. And then of course the other thing with Crackdown 3 is that it got delayed into 2018. But we'll see what happens with Crackdown 3. But just overall, just not a good year for Microsoft exclusives. And then on top of that, there wasn't a major game that the Xbox One X launched that came out alongside it. It would have looked really good if they had a major exclusive, a major AAA exclusive that launched on the same day as the Xbox One X and really took full advantage of the Xbox One X's powers so that they could show people, like, look, this is why you want an Xbox One X. This is a game that cannot look this good on the PlayStation 4 Pro. This is only possible on Xbox One X. They really needed a game like that, and they didn't have anything even close to that. So just overall, not a good situation for Microsoft to be in right now, but we'll see what happens in 2018. Maybe they have a bunch of exclusives that they haven't announced yet. I don't know, we'll see. But just overall, just a bad year for Xbox One exclusives. So that's pretty much it. That's my list of biggest winners and losers of 2017. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything or if you agree or disagree with any of these. If you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. My name is Turk, and thank you for watching Level 1 News.